Welcome to Nugg Talk.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Nugg Talk, a weekly podcast where we talk about everything going on in the NBA and everything going on with your Denver Nuggets.
Let's go!
We did it again. 3-1, baby. That's the key for this team. Just be down 3-1, and you will win every single series. I don't know how we did this.
I don't know how we did it either.
But we're in the Western Conference Finals. I totally thought we would be doing a season review podcast.
Yeah, I think a lot of Nuggets Nation, especially after we went down 3-1, thought that we weren't going to win this series.
But don't doubt this team.
But we can't doubt this team.
It's different.
Even in the next series, don't doubt this team.
Yeah, even though we
are going to doubt the team on this podcast.
But it's been working when we doubt the
exactly.
team.
I'm never going to stop doubting them.
But yeah, we came back down. The Clippers also blew a 3-1 lead. And we'll talk about that, but before we do have to talk about the Eastern Conference Finals. There is another conference. It's going on. It's happening. So the Heat are playing the Celtics right now. We just watched the second game. The Heat won. They're up 2-0. Milwaukee and Toronto both did not make it to the conference finals. They lost to the lower seeds. It's the first time there's not a top seed in the Eastern Conference Finals since like the 80s.
That's pretty nuts.
So yeah, what do you think? Who's going to win that series? We'll just give our quick predictions. Who's going to be in the finals for that? Again, knowing that Miami's up 2-0.
I'm just going to say Miami. They're not the Nuggets, so I don't see them coming back.
I mean, true. A lot of people
if they do, I said Miami going.
Yeah, you said Miami.
I don't see the Celtics coming back. So, I'm going to say Miami, and then I'm going to say the Lakers. But
we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
I would say that this series has been pretty close so far. Both the games have been pretty close. I still think it's going to go to 7. But if it goes to 7, I will give it still to Miami just because they have the more clutch player in Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler is really, I would say this is the peak of Jimmy Butler's career right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing really well. In today's game, he was all right. But, he's just got these guys playing hard, and they look like a good team. And, it's good to see, team ball actually winning and succeeding over talent. And that's been proven a lot so far in the playoffs with us and the Heat. And it's cool to see. But yeah, I would say it's still probably going to go 7 just because the first game went to overtime. Bam had a very amazing block to win that game. And then this game was pretty close, came down to the wire. And the bubble is crazy. So anything could happen. So I'd say 7, but I still also think Miami will probably make it. Just because they do have a 2-0 lead. So it's easier to bet on them.
Exactly. Like the Celtics, now all the pressure's on them to win games. And Miami, I think, came in as the underdog in this series.
Yeah.
So
that's what we think of the Eastern Conference Finals. Now we will get to our series. We said, we came back from a 3-1 deficit. We won 4-3 against the Los Angeles Clippers, even though they have Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Montrezl Harrell, and Lou Williams. Because they all choked. They choked. They just did.
Yeah.
I know a lot of Nuggets fans get upset that they're like, no, we won it. But, you can also say they choked.
It had to be a little bit of both for us to win this series. That's what happens when you go down 3-1.
Yeah, you don't play like they did towards the end and not say it was a choke. It was a choke, especially if Kawhi Leonard is considered a top 5 player and Paul George top 10.
Well, Paul
Sixth
George
man of the years.
Paul George isn't even close to top 10.
Well, I mean, he was in those conversations. But
yeah.
The first game, we got fucking completely railed. And obviously we did because we had 1 day of rest. And we didn't even get the game plan for the team probably. There was nothing we could have really done to prepare for that. You could already tell the guys were gassed. We lost 120 to 97. That was just a wash. I think every Nugget fan knew that we were going to lose that game because they were tired. Jamal looked tired. Jokic looked tired. They were pressing on Jamal. We had to get used to playing a new team. It was not going to go well that first game. But I think everyone was kind of shocked by how well we came out in the second game because we went from start to finish basically leading that game.
Mm-hmm.
We started off really well. We were up 20 at some point, and then they started to come back, but we still closed it out. We won 110-101 in that game in game 2. And that was when, there was at least the idea that, okay, we're not going to get swept, and this could be a series. And, Jamal had 27, Jokic had 26 and 18. And it kind of showed that if, like, those guys just play well, we can compete with this Clipper team.
Absolutely.
And then Game 3 happened, and this is an interesting game. We lost 113-107, but we blew it. Me and you, when we watched it, we were up 7 in the fourth quarter. Called a timeout. They go on an 8-0 run, and then they never look back. We blew that game, and that was one of the ones that we looked back to and we talked about. It was kind of like the Lakers series that we went and rewatched, like where we would blow games, and that was definitely one we were like, okay, we might regret blowing that because we definitely should have been up 2-1.
Yeah,
but
we definitely should have. Man, it's crazy to think about, but yeah.
Yeah, like we blew that game. That game was totally on us being young and choking it, and we should have won that game. But the guys just didn't respond the way they should have coming out of that timeout, and they didn't close out that half. And they also didn't close out the second half. Like, we went into halftime with a big lead, and then they also went on a run again to make the lead smaller. And I think the guys learned from that. But then the fourth game, and this is where everything kind of turned into big drama. We lost 96-85. All we were doing was giving it to Jokic and Jamal. They were playing very good defense on them. And then MPJ just starts deciding he wants to talk. And he said, we need to get him the ball more. He didn't get the ball. And granted, he had 15 points, I think, at halftime. Didn't touch it the rest of the way, basically. Yeah. He was very upset that he was not involved in the offense more. He said we need to stop running it just through Jamal and Jokic. He got a lot of flack for it. What do you think about his comments post-game for that?
Even now, I don't think he was wrong, but he was wrong to say it to the media. So it sounds like they handled it pretty well internally. It sounds like no one's like, I mean, obviously he got clowned by the NBA, like around the NBA.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like him.
Seems like the team rallied around him, or not rallied, like rallied him up. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
they accepted what he said, and I'm sure that they talked about it. And then Malone must have said something to him to at least get him back locked in, because he did this, and then we played the next game, and he won that game for us, I think.
Yeah, he had a clutch shot in that game. Yeah, I mean, obviously, he wasn't entirely wrong. I don't think he should have called out Jokic and Jamal, and he didn't really call them out, but he still said they're great players, and you can't be upset when you give them the ball, but it was just like, you didn't need to say that at all to the media or anything. You can't throw your coach under the bus.
Yeah.
You can't throw your teammates under the bus, and you can't just seem kind of selfish, because he did say, like, I should get the ball. The biggest issue was Malone had his presser first, and they asked Malone, what did they start doing to MPJ to not get the ball? And Malone said they started focusing in on him more. They were running different coverages, and then they asked Porter what they did on him, and he was like, they did nothing different. So that was just throwing his coach kind of under the bus. Shouldn't have done that. Like you said, though, I think he learned from it. They talked to him, and Malone had a conversation with him. No one took it too seriously, which was definitely something that could have been an issue. It could have hurt chemistry and morale. I definitely thought it would affect us in Game 5 and cause us to lose, because usually when you see things like that, it disrupts the locker room.
Yeah.
It ruins, chemistry. It ruins everything. It kind of goes, because you're focusing more now in those conferences, those interviews, and those pregame interviews, all about, they're just asking you what he said instead of focusing about the game. But I think the guys were good at shutting that out and shutting all kind of outside media out.
Their focus is really impressive.
Yeah, and I also think the same thing, too, is like, I don't think MPJ would have said those comments if Will Barton was in the bubble, because Will Barton is his vet. You'll see on multiple occasions, Will Barton's always in MPJ's ear, always giving him advice, always talking to him. And I think because Will Barton wasn't there, he started to say some things he shouldn't have, but he didn't have someone to tell him that those weren't the things that you should be saying.
Yeah.
So I think not having Will there definitely hurt them. But again, everyone kind of rallied around. No one took it too seriously, and they worked on trying to find ways to take what he said and improve on it. And then, comebacks start happening. Game 5 was the toughest one, for sure. We won a 111-105. as Phil said earlier, this is the game MPJ had a clutch 3 and a clutch block, and
he didn't do much of anything else. But I think that's also encouraging. He wasn't getting touches. He wasn't playing particularly well, but he was still locked in.
Yeah, he accepted his role, which was the main thing he has to do right now. I think with a talent like his, it's good for him to think that he's one of the best players in the league, because you want that out of a young talent, because that means he's going to try hard to become one of those guys. But right now is not the time. Right now, you got to follow your role, and you got to stick to it, and you're there to shoot threes and get rebounds, and that's basically it. And just don't fuck up
really
on defense
right now. Yeah.
And he started doing that, and that was a very clutch performance. Jokic and Jamal were very good in those games, in Game 5. And this was also the game where Paul Millsap showed up. So in the third quarter, Marcus Morris, a lot of people don't like him, got into the face of Paul Millsap, apparently said, "Fuck you, you're about to go home," or something.
Yeah, something like that.
And then Paul Millsap popped off for a 13-0 run basically by himself in the third quarter to bring us back down from a 16-point deficit. What do you even think about that game alone?
I've been really trying to process just everything that happened just in general, and I'm still just kind of I don't want to say in shock, but I just don't know how. I just don't obviously I'm so fucking happy, but I just can't believe what I just witnessed.
Yeah.
And so this game, thinking back on it, this was the turning point in the series, but Paul Millsap really changed this series.
Yeah.
He kind of, I think when he said that and people got pissed, it kind of everyone was just kind of they relocked back in almost.
Well, I think they rallied around. There was two moments in this game. There was that, and then also Malone got a technical when Jokic did kind of a shot. In the third quarter, Zubac had his hand clearly on Jokic's arm, and he got a technical right away and was like, "That's a fucking foul." And I think them seeing their coach rally like that and still give effort, and also seeing Paul, who really rarely shows emotion, gives all he's got and everything he has to try to win that game, really rallied the young guys, especially Jamal and Jokic.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I think, shook the Clippers a little bit, that Game 5. Because they were like, well, shit, we were up 16. How did they do this? Because most teams would just be like, well, our season's done. Let's go to Cancun. Let's relax.
But we just fought right back.
But we fought right back. And that's when I started to believe a little bit. I was like, oh, no, there's no way we could do it again. And then Game 6 happened. And I'd say Game 6, we were down again. Another big deficit. I think it was 19 in this one. And the team wasn't playing that well to start off. They were having struggles, but then the second half started to happen, and the third quarter happened, and guys just started popping off. You had Jokic go off for 34, probably Jokic's best game in the playoffs so far. He had 34, 7, and 14. You had Jamal get 21. And then a real shout out to Gary Harris.
Yeah, Gary Harris really showed up.
16 points. He shot 2 of 4 from the 3-point line. His 3-point shot looks like it's back finally. He's shooting, I think, somewhere around 13 for 28 or something so far in the playoffs from 3.
Which is 40%, 30% better than he was.
It's really high. So he's doing a lot better there. He's being active. MPJ had 13 off the bench. Monte, still being as solid as he always is. And I think, just the fact that Jokic and Jamal and Gary are so willing to play extra minutes too. They all played 40 minutes, and that's asking a lot, especially out of Jamal and Gary, who have been coming off of injuries recently when they came into the bubble. But they just started popping off. They started playing good defense. I think sparked by a lot of Gary Harris and Jeremy Grant, holding Kawhi Leonard and Beverly and Montrez and Lou Williams, holding them to low scores. And then once we got there and they blew that 19-point lead, you just believe the best out of this at this point. But it's Game 7, so you'd be nervous. But I mean, what did you think at least of those two comebacks? Because they did twice.
So after we won Game 6, deep down, I thought that we were going to win that series, but there was no way on God's green earth I was going to say it out loud,
Yeah.
So I felt good, like, and they looked like the better team, especially in Game 6, and they did in Game 5 too. It took a huge rally, but
and we looked better in Game 3 too.
Yeah, in Game 3 we looked better
Even
too.
though we lost.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just kind of crazy just to see, like, it's almost like they just need like a buffer in these series, and then they lock in. We'll talk about the next series, but this team is super resilient, and I don't think they're I don't think they're ever gonna get destroyed in a series.
Yeah. And I think now we can go, like, going on to Game 7 and off of your point, I mean, these guys don't give up. They try really hard, and we kind of knew that. And we also knew the most frustrating thing about this team is they show up when, like, everything backs against the wall, or they're always expected to lose, stuff like that, and they don't show up when they're expected to win, or it's supposed to be an easy game, things like that. And it's always been a thing with this team, and right now it's great that that's the case, that they play better when their back's against the wall, because it's worked out twice for us.
Yeah.
But going forward into the future, they need to just bring it all the time.
This cannot be
the way.
This is not the way.
You can't just do it. Like, that is not how you got to do it. Like, it is very, very frustrating and anxiety riddling to have to watch this team.
And also, it has to be completely exhausting for them.
Yeah.
And, like, they're coming into this Lakers series. Their Lakers are fully rested, and we are coming off 14 playoff games compared to their 10.
Yeah. Which is crazy. So, I mean, but then they come into Game 7, and we completely, like, it's close for the first two quarters. Third quarter, we just pop off from there going forward. Blow them out. We won 104-89. Jokic has a triple-double with 22 rebounds, the only player to do that in a Game 7. Jamal Murray has 40. Gary Harris has 14. Jeremy Grant finally finds his shot back a little bit. He also has 14 because he was struggling for most of this series, but I don't blame him because he has the hard task of guarding Kawhi Leonard and Paul George with Gary, so it's tough to give your effort on both ends. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they choke. They don't show up in the fourth quarter. They went 0 for 11. They did not make a single shot.
Yeah.
And then we won the series, and we won it for Coach Malone on his birthday, which that's super
really
nice
cool,
to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, we celebrated, thoroughly with champagne. We had champagne. We popped it.
We celebrated.
We celebrated very thoroughly for the occasion. I think every Nuggets fan was happy that we beat the title favorite team in Las Vegas, and to most people's eyes, this was the team who was supposed to win the title this year over the Lakers, over every other team.
Over everybody.
And that shows you a lot, especially because MPJ is not even good yet.
Yeah. No, I mean, let's be honest. Jamal isn't even in his prime yet. Like,
Jokic's not in his prime yet.
Yeah, technically he's not.
These guys are not there yet. And we have to give we gave him a lot of hate.
We gave a lot of hate.
And I have to give Malone a lot of credit.
Me too. He outcoached Doc Rivers in the end.
He's just late at doing adjustments, but he does do adjustments. But again, this is only his second time in the playoffs.
Exactly.
And I think we always forget that.
Yeah, this is his second season in the playoffs. It's only his fourth playoff series.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people always forget that when they look at Malone. He's also just as much as these guys learning as he goes.
Yeah, he's also inexperienced. And also we have to also just like give credit to the fact that it seems like everybody on this team loves him. I even will say MPJ likes Michael Malone.
I feel like MPJ's I think MPJ will like him more next year.
I think that's going to change when he gets minutes, but like he rallies this team. He clearly has an effect on this team.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, just the way that he gets these guys going, the way he gets them to never quit is great. And Jamal is turning into that dog. I did say, and I like to hear after this game, Jamal went on to the post-game stuff, like interviews, and he basically called out all the reporters who doubted us. He basically said that we are a tough team. We went to all the reporters during the games, and they would talk about it, and they said that we have the label of being soft, which I even gave to this team at one point, the last podcast. This team is not as soft anymore. Jamal's starting to turn into a little bit of a dog. Jokic is a playoff machine.
He is. Top 10 player easily. I mean, he already was, but
Yeah,
he's approaching like top 5 territory.
Yeah, and he's a top 13 scorer right now in playoff history. So he's this clutch. This team, they're trying really hard. They're doing great. They're getting rid of that soft label. They're getting rid of a lot of the doubts they had, and they exceeded our expectations. This is already an amazing season.
This has been amazing. This is what I wanted from them last season, and then. Well, I mean, last season, even then, it was just like it was our first year, you know?
Yeah, and then, that was an easier way to do
exactly.
it.
And then, like, the next year after we lost to Portland, I was like, okay, next year, Western Conference Finals. And then the Clippers happened. They traded for Kawhi because you had a feeling the Lakers were going to be good. And the Warriors, that's a wrench into the thing, but we'll talk about that in a future podcast. We'll talk about next season when we find out what next season will be.
What it'll look like and everything.
I only expected I wanted them to win the first round and compete against the Clippers. That was my realistic expectations, and they blew it out of the water.
Yeah.
So
they absolutely blew out of the water. Granted, it's bubble, and that puts in a lot of other things, but either way, a 3-1 comeback is hard to do no matter where you are, and it's amazing that they did, especially with how fucking back and forth the schedule is, because they only get a day off every single time. So props to these guys. A lot of love to these guys. Everyone involved, from the coaching staff down to the players. This is the best Nuggets team of all time.
Yep, agreed.
Better than the Carmelo Nuggets that went to Western Conference Finals. Better than the old 70s Nuggets. Better than the Kemba's. This is the best Nugget team of all time.
I don't think it's particularly close either.
It's not. No team will ever do what this team just did. To do 2 3-1 comebacks in the same playoff series, that will never ever happen again. I promise you that will never ever happen again in the history of the NBA. That is just an unfathomable thing. It's only happened 13 times, and we're 2 of them, and we did them in the same playoffs,
which is insane.
So props to this team. We love this team, and now we have to talk about the next series when we're playing the Lakers. They are the title favorites. To me and Phil, they were always the title favorites. We definitely always thought that they were going to win the title. We are playing them tomorrow. That will be the first game. How do you see the series going? Who do you think needs to play well? What do you think we're going to do on LeBron, AD, these things?
Okay, so obviously, I think it's and it's fun for me to say this because this is kind of what you want, even though I think Jamal and Jokic are going to get theirs. I think they're both going to play well in this series, and that's what we need them to do. They're going to do their jobs, and they're going to do them well. I completely expect that. As far as LeBron and AD goes, this is one of the series where all I'm thinking is, let's be competitive. Let's make it hard for them. Yeah. And guarding LeBron, you got to throw Jeremy Grant at him. You got to throw Paul Millsap at him, even though I'll get to Paul Millsap. And then Torrey Craig and Gary are going to have to do some too.
It's going to be a whole team effort.
It's going to be a whole team effort. When it comes to Anthony Davis, first off, I don't think Mason Plumlee should play at all in this series either.
He's barely played in the playoffs so far. I think Malone has realized that.
Okay, because I know for a fact that Anthony Davis just obliterates Plumlee worse than he quote unquote obliterates Jokic.
Yeah, I think Plumlee has fallen out of the rotation. I don't think he's coming back anytime soon, which is
good.
Good.
But so that being said, Anthony Davis, I think Paul Millsap's going to be the primary defender, which makes sense because they'll both be playing the 4 when the game starts. But I think just when he's on the court, Paul will be guarding him unless he gets bodied and it needs to change.
Yeah.
Jokic is going to have to, for us to win the series, Jokic is going to have to play the best defense of his life.
Yeah.
He's going to have to somehow at least be a clutch rim protector. He doesn't have to be one. He's never going to be that.
Yeah. But he has to help as much as he can.
Exactly. At the end of the day, we're playing a top 2 player of all time.
Yeah. And also another top 5 player.
A current top 5 player.
2 All-NBA first teamers. Jokic got All-NBA second team, but
I consider Jokic getting All-NBA first team 1B. Like, Anthony Davis deserved to be there, and I won't dispute that, but Jokic also deserved to be there.
Yeah, if they actually had a real center position,
exactly.
It'd be Jokic.
He's the best player on All-NBA second team.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. The thing always with LeBron is, do you just let LeBron get 60, or do you let LeBron pass to the other guys and get them involved? And that's the same thing with any top 5 player of all time. It's like, what do you do? Do you just let them do their stuff and hope the other guys miss, or do you just make it it's always that things up in the air. I think the best way to beat LeBron is to let him try to score and not let him pass to the guys. So I would hope that we just try to let him and AD beat us alone. And try to limit the other guys as much as possible. I think that is the best strategy to do it. From all the years I've watched LeBron,
that's kind of what the Warriors did in a way.
Yeah, it's just the best way to do it because once he gets other guys involved, then you got so many more defensive issues where you can't just worry about him. Now you got to start worrying about Danny Green.
But yeah, this is the kind of series where I expect Danny Green to break out of his slump.
Yeah, so like there's always these other guys you have to start worrying about. So I would say just start worrying about that. The 2 games we played 4 games against them. 1 game LeBron didn't play. That's the one we won. 2 of them were close. One of them, I think they blew us out, but it was pretty early on in the season. But those don't really matter at this point.
Yeah.
I think Jamal is going to have a lot easier of a series in this one because he has to go up against way worse defenders.
Yeah.
He's not going up against Kawhi, PG, and Patrick Beverly. He's going up against KCP, Danny Green, maybe LeBron on a switch. Rondo. Then they aren't bad defenders, but they're definitely not first team all defense guys. So I think that will be a lot easier. So I think Jamal will have an easier series. I think Jokic will have a harder series at first because Anthony Davis will be guarding him. Anthony Davis makes it harder for him to get those 3-point shots off of those high pick and rolls. Anthony Davis makes it harder for him to get, offensive rebounds. But I think once Jokic gets adapted to kind of his size, and, kind of goes back to like, okay, I'm playing against kind of a Rudy Gobert type on defense, he'll get back into it. But at first, I think he'll struggle a little bit.
I think he will too. But it's nice to feel like that our guys are here to stay though. Like they're always going to get back into it.
Yeah. And I think MPJ will have a better series in this one too. He won't like pop off or go crazy or anything, but I think he'll do better. I think Jeremy will do better too. Gary is always the wild card. Hopefully he's still on going forward, but he's the wild card. Paul probably won't be existent, which is fine. He hasn't been usually for most of these games except for that one in the third quarter. And then Monte is going to be Monte as always. But yeah, it's going to be a tough series. I don't think these guys are going to ever kind of quit on it, but going up against LeBron James is a hard ask for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think the outcome will be of the series?
My heart says, so this is like how I feel about this series. My heart says Lakers in 7, but I'm going to say Lakers in 6.
Okay. Yeah, I think also Lakers in 6. I would love for it to go to 7.
Me too.
But the thing is, this one goes to 7, we're still not winning.
Yeah, no, that's the thing is like, even if it's not going to be Nuggets in 7 unless Jamal or Jokic take another leap.
Yeah, they have to go to another
or MPJ
level.
Takes a huge leap.
Yeah,
like a huge leap.
Yeah, we need either a surprise role player to pop out like Marcus Smart has been doing for the Celtics, or we need Jokic and Jamal to each average 30 points to win the series. I think we'll win games. I think it'll be competitive.
I don't think any game's going to be a blowout necessarily. Maybe game 1.
Game 1 might be, but we got some rest, but they got a lot of rest. And for an older team like them, that actually helps them.
Yeah.
But then it comes into the thing of, is rest or rust? They might be rusty. They might not be. I don't think they will be. I feel like they'll be pretty locked in, especially because LeBron probably feels like this is his best chance to win a finals that he's ever had.
Yeah.
Which
is going to be his easiest path, probably.
Yeah, which is kind of disrespectful to us, but at the same time, we are a very young team.
We have to look at it objectively.
The Celtics are a young team.
Yeah.
The Heat only have Jimmy Butler. He doesn't have to go up against the Clippers anymore.
Yeah,
so.
He doesn't have to do the Clippers. He doesn't have to deal with the Warriors. He doesn't have to deal with the Spurs. And all 3 of those teams are better than us, and I think we're the second best team left. So
I think he'll be definitely dialed in. I think AD will be dialed in. I think this really does come down to the others. Their others outplay ours. Ours should outplay them, but it's like, how do we play LeBron? How does that adapt to helping those guys out? I think Lakers also win in 6, but it is what it is.
It's going to be fun. I think we're going to learn a lot more about this team and their future in this series, and I'm expecting to come out of this series proud. You know, I'm going to be glad that they're going to compete.
And I think Malone also mentioned it kind of in his post-game interview after they won. He was like, I'm not only excited for this team right now, but I'm excited for the future. And I think that's because everyone, in the NBA can see that this team has the most bright future with the Dallas Mavericks, just because Luka is really good.
It's those two, and then like the Celtics, and that's it.
Yeah, like that's the main ones. OKC could be one because of how many picks they got from the Clippers, but that's later on.
They're not there yet. So Pelicans maybe, but we'll see.
We have a very bright future, and we already exceeded expectations. So no matter what, I'm happy as a Nuggets fan.
I am too. I'm so proud of this team.
Yeah, I love this team. This team is amazing. And it's unfortunate that every time we go to the Western Conference Finals, we play the fucking Lakers. But hey, who knows? Maybe third time's the charm, and we could beat them.
You never know. We say this, and
yeah, we probably would lose the last series. We didn't, so who knows? Maybe we won't lose this one. But yeah, that's our overall thoughts for this team. We love them, and we'll come back at the end of the series. If we win, we'll do a finals preview, which would be insane. And if we lose, we will do a season in review, talk about all the guys, how they can improve coming back to the next season. And yeah, we'll look forward to talking to you guys soon.
Go Nuggets.